Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We'll just give it maybe even a second because I can see the numbers really increasing, which is lovely. Thank you for joining on time. We'll just give it a minute, then we'll have, the AfriSoc president start us off and we can start our webinar. Thank you for joining. We are now at like 98 people, which is super, super amazing. It's even sunny in Oxford, which has not been the case this week. So, yeah. Guess you're having more blessings.
It's a beautiful day.
Yeah. I just got need of my sweater. I'll wait until the numbers are like stagnant at some point and we can start then. But yeah, thank you so much for joining. So this is the AfOx, AfriSoc, DPhil webinar. We'll be discussing things regarding applying to Oxford for DPhil, and we have speakers lined up from the different discipline and department here at Oxford, with amazing information, with all the do's and don't with the application, all the details about college, funding questions also, we'll be discussing that. And we're excited about this. We're now at a good number to start, and I think I'll just go ahead and welcome Nina to start. My name is Mwangi myself. In the AfriSoc committee, and I also work for AfOx as a student engagement officer. We're excited to host this conversation today, and we look forward to having a fruitful conversation. Thank you so much to our panelists who have, it's already 5 p.m. in the UK, so I know most of them need to be traveling to their houses from their offices or from their departments, so we might miss a few if we delay on some of the questions, but yeah, we got everything sorted. We'll go ahead and have Nina. Welcome, Madam President.
Thank you so much, Mwangi. So initially I wasn't going to have slides, but at the very last minute, I changed my mind because I think it will be very beautiful to have you guys see sort of the work that we do in our faces.
Perfect.
Can everyone see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Okay, beautiful. Um, So, good evening, everyone. It's an absolute honor to introduce two remarkable initiatives that is shaping the academic and professional journeys of African scholars here in Oxford. We have the University of Oxford Africa Society and the Africa Oxford Initiative. So first, a brief introduction into AfriSoc, as we call it, which is the Oxford University Africa Society. So it's one of the most dynamic student societies at the University of Oxford, and it serves as a community for students, scholars, and professionals who basically share passion for the African continent. So what the society aims to do is to promote dialogue, encourage research, and facilitate networking among African students and allies. And we do this through discussions, programs, and also providing a platform where voices and experiences of Africans can be celebrated and amplified within the university's academic sphere and beyond. And next, we have the AfOx, which is the Africa Oxford Initiative. This is a cross-university platform created to facilitate meaningful collaborations between the University of Oxford and African institutions. And it brings together researchers, practitioners, policymakers, students, everyone, to be honest, to address some of the most pressing global challenges, particularly in the continent. AfOx supports African researchers through scholarships, fellowships, and collaborative research projects, making sure to foster an inclusive environment and highlighting the diversity and talent that we have within the African community. And so today, we not only have this fantastic webinar, but we also are officially launching the AfriSoc AfOx mentorship program. This is a vital initiative that builds on the spirit of collaboration and supports African scholars in Oxford. And this is the team. Mwangi and Campil have done an amazing job in making sure that this webinar is organized, getting our speakers. And so a very big thank you to them. And so through this mentorship program, we hope to empower a new generation of African scholars to maximize the potential and basically broaden their networks and contribute meaningfully to change on the continent and globally. And so on that note, applications are open. Here's the QR code. Feel free to scan it. Feel free to scan it. I'll post a link in the chat as well, so don't worry. I'll also post all our social media platforms. So with the app with AfOx and AfriSoc, I'm going to share all our social media platforms. So make sure to follow us because there are a lot of opportunities available for African scholars. And I am looking forward to the rest of this webinar. Please enjoy.
Thank you, Nina. And yeah, as you've had it, the application is now open. The QR code we're going to bring it back at some point, but we'll also post it on AfriSoc and AfOx channels from today. And this is the best opportunity you can have to have someone guide you through the application. We'll make sure we connect you with someone who either comes from your country, goes to your department most likely, and maybe you might find that you're sharing a supervisor or you're targeting the supervisor they have. So take advantage of that. With that said, we're going to start the webinar. We have already started. We're going to start the conversation with the DPhil students we have with us today. And we'll start with Clement, who is a DPhil in the international development, or like the international development, DPhil in international development. I just forgot the name of the department, as you can
Oh,
tell.
did.
Clement, please tell us more about the department and applying for an international development DPhil here at Oxford. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you, Nina. Thank you, Wangi, for facilitating this workshop or seminar. So my name is Clement, and I'm from Ghana, and I do the DPhil in international development. So just to give you a bit of context, I completed my MPhil in development studies in the same department in Oxford. So right from the MPhil, I moved on to the DPhil. So that's it. And today I'm going to talk to you about three key things. First, let me tell you a bit about my department. So ODID is a vibrant department. We run 8 different programs and 2 PhDs and 5 master's programs. And we are mainly focused on international development, but we do also have programs in migration studies. We do have forced refugee studies. We do have economics for development. We do have if anything comes, I'll tell you. And so that's my department, and my research is on climate change resilience and adaptation in northern Ghana. So I'm trying to look at how indigenous groups are trying to adapt to climate change in northern Ghana and how the state is trying to support them through resilience policies. I'm looking at the knowledge and power that goes into the policy. So that's just a background about me. And I'm going to talk to you today about 3 main things. The first will be about how to apply for it and some of the things that I knew before, and I'll touch briefly on funding, right? Because I've been in the system for a while and I know a bit about funding. So the first thing I'll talk about is before you apply, one thing I knew before applying for the DPhil was before you apply, you should consider reaching out to prospective supervisors within the department. On the website, they say it's not mandatory to find a supervisor before you apply, but I would say try and secure a supervisor before you apply. The reason being that the supervisor can guide your application. You would be able to sometimes send your proposal beforehand. They can give some comments on the proposal, and then you can ask for their guidance and support throughout the application process. And one thing I got to know after applying was that in my department, 3 different assessors assess each PhD application. And so we have two academic staff in the department who has undergone rigorous training. And then you have your prospective supervisor. So if you've not secured the prospective supervisor, I don't know how that's going to be like, but I would say try to browse the department websites, or it's not only audit, right? You can look at geography, you can look at other departments within the social science division. Go onto their website, look for professors that you share you share research interest, and and so reach out to them beforehand and say, hi, Prof, so and so I did my bachelor's or my master's in this, and I'm interested to do this and that. And I want to ask if you would be willing and available to supervise my work, because sometimes they are willing, they are not available. Sometimes they are available, they are not willing. So ask if they are willing and available to supervise your work. And then if they say yes, ask if you could share with them your proposal. And often they would say yes and share the proposal with them. Some people would like to send the proposal at the same time as reaching out to them. But I would say first draft a short email, reach out to them, ask for their availability and willingness to supervise, and then you can share with them your proposal. And often they would give you some comments and say, hi, I think you should do this, I think you should do that. And I'm going to talk a bit about what goes into the proposal. Usually people are confused about the main things to include in the research proposal within audit or within the social science division broadly. I'm going to say two key things matter really when it comes to the proposal. The first is to present your, so first is what is your question? What is the actual question? What is your research question? What's your objective? What is the challenge, or what is the problem you want to address? What is the key issue you want to address? And the second aspect is how you're going to do it, right? So first is the issue and how you're going to do it. So this means that you should have a very good background to the study. You should be able to tell that these are the literature I'm going to work with. I know the literature, I know the area. And again, another key thing is the methodology, right? They need to know how you're going to do it. I've reviewed a few proposals, and then you see people talk about, oh, I'm going to do this and this and that, but they don't really tell the reviewers how they're going to do it. So be clear on if you're going to do quant, say I'm going to do quant. If you're going to do qual, say you're going to do qual. And with qual, what kind of methods are you going to use? Are you going to do ethnographic methods? Are you going to do data analysis? Are you going to do archival methods? Be clear on what methods you want to do. And then I think with that, it's usually what happens is that people change their topics slightly when they get into the program. But at the application stage, they want to know if you have a clear idea, if you have a clear picture of what or how you're going to address that issue, right? So I would say, first, reach out to them, and to know these key issues. So be clear on what you're going to address. You should have a compelling question. And again, I know my department, we don't accept statements of purpose as part of the PhD applications, but other departments do. So if you have to write a statement of purpose as part of it, let them know why you're interested in the program, why that program, how you're going to address how we're going to approach your thesis, and how you can get it done within 3 to 4 years, right? Because most PhD programs in Oxford are 3 to 4 years. In my case, because I did the MPhil in Oxford, it's 2 to 3 years for me, but most of the other PhD students do 3 to 4 years. So let them know that you can approach this, you can tackle this big question in 3 to 4 years, right? And the last thing I'm going to talk about, because I don't have much time, is about funding, right? Usually people worry a lot about funding at the beginning. I would say there are some funds that are available after you apply. You don't have to apply to them separately. You are automatically considered. And so usually what I tell people is, don't worry too much about funding. I think you should focus more on how you will get in the first place, right? Because getting into Oxford it's highly competitive. So first approach, make sure you craft a very compelling proposal. Make sure your recommendation, your referees write very good. I don't know how you do it, but make sure their references are good. Make sure you have a very good statement of purpose. And your written samples, if you are asked, they are really clear. They are free from plagiarism. They are critical. It's not very, how do I call it, descriptive, but it's in a way analytic. They want to know how you think, how you reason, how you can construct academic arguments, right? And so make sure you focus mainly on that, other than worrying too much about funding. That said, if you browse the department website, there are a few scholarships available. In my case, with the MPhil, I was on the department scholarship. My department is also called the Queen Elizabeth House. So I won the Queen Elizabeth House for the 2 years of my MPhil. But for my DPhil, there was this funding. I think it's not really operational anymore, the ANY scholarship, and it's with St. Anthony's College. So I applied for that. So that demanded that I apply separately. So there are some scholarships you can apply for separately, right? So you can talk about the Rhodes Scholarship, you can talk about the Rindenfield Hoffman Scholarship, you can talk about a few, but if you browse the department website, you can find these scholarships and apply to. But again, like I said, some of the scholarships you automatically considered, like the Clarendon Scholarship, like the various department scholarships. You just make sure your application is on point, you submit, you pray and hope for the best. And then if your application is compelling enough, you can win some of these scholarships. So I think I'll end it here. Thank you. The next person, carry on.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Clement, for starting us on a bang in terms of just moving us from all the aspects of like making an application. And yeah, we end up at like funding, which I know will be a big question within this webinar. And most people are worried about how to apply for funding. Do I need to make a separate application? If you mentioned about like separate application, and I'm happy that the next speaker is a Rhodes Scholar who just finished the bachelor's, which is the bachelor's of civil law, which I understand is not a bachelor's, it's a master's apparently. He will tell us more about that. And then he will also tell us about the Rhodes Scholarship and its own application journey. And that is Liso. Liso is doing a DPhil, or he's starting a DPhil in law this month. So welcome, Liso. And then I'll reinstate some of the points Clement has said. Liso?
Hey, sorry, I was muted.
No problem. Welcome. Take us through the journey of a law student in Oxford.
Yes. First things first, let me introduce myself. So as Mwangi said, I am Liso. I am from South Africa. Over the past couple of months, I was doing the BCL at the law faculty, and then I concluded that in July, and then I'll be starting the DPhil, focusing on constitutional property law, but that's neither here nor there. So firstly, just briefly about the law faculty. So the law faculty basically houses all the law degrees that the university offers. It houses the undergraduate BA in jurisprudence, legal studies in Europe, and so on. And it also houses the postgraduate programs. In the postgraduate programs, we've got the research programs like the MPhil, and we've got the DPhil. But also, I think what the law faculty is mostly known for is its MSCs or taught master's programs. So it's got the BCL, as Mani has mentioned, but also the BCL sister course called the MJUR. It's also got the MSc in criminology and criminal justice. I've got a list here somewhere because there's also a few of them. It's got the MSc in intellectual property, MSc in international human rights, the MLF, that's an MSc in law and finance, the MSc in taxation, the postgraduate diploma in intellectual property, and the MSc in legal research. So the first thing you need to do is decide whether you want to do a research program or you want to do perhaps an MSc. So a couple of factors can come into play into this. For example, if you would like to just broaden your understanding of a particular subject area like tax, you might, or finance, you might have to think about, well, wouldn't that better be suited for, one of the short-term intensive MSc programs that will still give you as much of an exposure into that particular area of study as you would get in 3 years. But then deciding on whether or not the DPhil is for you then is an important step in the process. So in law specifically, obviously, the DPhil is mostly a conduit to the academy. So most people who take the DPhil will more likely, go for academic positions. But more increasingly over the years, a lot more people who've taken the DPhil have gone to join the bar. Some of the leading barristers in some of the leading sets in London, for example, have taken PhDs or DPhils, and some of the advocates in my country as well do have PhDs. So that's to say that recently the academy isn't the only destination for DPhils anymore. So that can give you room to think more broadly about what you want to do with your career, and you wouldn't be limited to the academy or to having to teach or do research for the rest of your life, which some people might enjoy. So I guess for me, it was simply about, just getting that chance to spend an extra 3 years focusing on a particular project that I was passionate about, but also getting the chance to do nothing than, other than reading and writing and thinking every day. So that's something that was an attraction for me. And like I said, I had a project that I wanted to explore. And when the time came and the opportunity arose, I put the application in. And then, it went where it went. So then tips on how to write a compelling research proposal. I think Clement has already touched on this, and I think the law faculty is similar as well. So how they consider our applications is that firstly, it will go through the central faculty officials who are going to look at whether you've got all the documentation and whether you qualify for the program, and whether your written samples and everything are compelling enough to admit you. And then once you get past that step, they then send them out to the particular field that you want to explore your research in. So like in my case, it was property law. So they took it to the property group and everyone who's doing research there, and they inquired about whether or not anyone is interested in the project. But then, like Clement said as well, it's useful to approach potential supervisors timelessly, even while you're preparing the research proposal. In that sense, you not only get to get feedback from them, but they don't get surprised when the application lands on their laps when, during the application process, because you've already spoken to them and they've already kind of given you some assurance that they're interested in the program. So then you might have a bit more confidence going in because you already have someone who's read through the proposal and who's shown interest in it and who might take it on and supervise it. So like Clement said as well, it's very important to be clear in terms of what you want to do. You won't be tied to it once you admit it, but then it's very useful to have an idea, a very clear idea of what you would like to do as your project, how you would like to do it. Your methodologies are very important to set out very clearly, and how you would do the project in the time frame that the DPhil usually allows you to do it for. So that's very important for you to note. How do you approach potential supervisors? You obviously look at firstly what you're interested in, and then you look at whether there's anybody in the faculty who's doing that kind of research or research that's adjacent to it. Ultimately, you will be the expert in the particular research question and the particular project that you're doing. So you don't necessarily have to find someone who's done the exact sort of work, but then you want to find someone who has done work in an adjacent project, who can be able to give you feedback and who can be able to supervise and guide you through the process. So personal statements, yeah, we don't have those either in the faculty. And then we also don't have interviews if you're applying for a DPhil in law faculty. So they just consider your entire application based on your written application pieces. And then in terms of funding, like Mwangi said, and also because of time, I'll just talk briefly about the Rhodes Scholarship, which I was fortunate enough to get. So you can find most of the info on the scholarship's website, but essentially it basically funds up at the minimum 2 years of postgraduate study at the University of Oxford. So how you would usually go about it is that you would first apply for the scholarship, and then you would hear about the scholarship results at the latest by November of the year before the school year starts. And then once you have been elected into the scholarship, you then put in your application for whatever program you would like to do. So you could either do 2 one-year master's programs, or you could just go straight into the DPhil, or you could do a master's program and then the DPhil. So with the Rhodes Scholarship, like I said, they usually fund 2 years. But then if you get into the DPhil, they can then fund up to 3 years fully. And then the 4th year, they can fund, at least as things stand, they can fund your fees and tuition, and then you would have to find alternative funding for your living costs. But then those are usually, from what I hear, not too hard to come by. The law faculty has some limited scholarships, which are faculty-based and are usually need-based as well, which could be useful in supplementing your living costs in your 4th year. You also have teaching opportunities. You also have potentials for junior deanships. So you could always find alternative funding. But yes, so yeah, if you would like to apply for the Rhodes Scholarship, you can then do that, and then they can help you to apply for the main program that you want to do.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Liso, for the dive on the law faculty and how to approach an application for DPhil in law. And also, yeah, the detail on the Rhodes Scholarship. I just wanted to mention that, yeah, we have the Q&A section that questions are being answered by the panelists. So feel free to drop your questions there. Whichever question will not have been answered at the end of the call, we're going to have a live session to just answer them. Also, the other thing I need to mention at this point, we have 2 scholars or 2 DPhil students from each of the departments. So if something in social sciences has been said by Clement, but there's still something hanging, we'll have, for example, Acacia at some point later on to clarify apply on that. And we also have someone else from humanity who will come in later on. For now, we'll go to Mara, who is a Rhodes Scholar from Malawi doing a DPhil in the medical sciences field, and she'll tell us more about the Kennedy Institute and how do you need a proposal as a medical student, or how do you go about that? So Mara, welcome.
Well, thank you, Mangi. Thank you, Nina, Kapio, and Mangi for putting this together. So, as Mangi has said, I'm Mara. I'm from Malawi. I am a medical doctor. That's what I did for my undergrad. And then I did my master's in immunology here at the University of Oxford between 2021 to 2022. I then went home for a year and I came back as a Rhodes Scholar. And I'm also funded by the Africa Oxford Initiative Kennedy Trust Prize Studentship. It's a mouthful, but in summary, it's the AfOx KTPS Scholarship. And that's what I'll briefly go into so that you can be aware of this funding. So my DPhil is under the Medical Sciences Division. And we also have Uchenna, who's under the same division, and she'll speak more. So it's a large division. It has 16 departments. And if you go on the website, you'll see all the departments that are housed there. It ranges from pediatrics, rheumatology, and anything else in the medical field is handled by that department. So I am in the NAFIL department of orthopedics, rheumatology, and musculoskeletal sciences. Another mouthful. Oxford likes really long names. So I'm under NDOMS. And under NDOMS, I am under the Kennedy Institute of Rheumatology. So it's a bit of a hierarchy. You have MSD, you have NDOMS, and then you have the Kennedy Institute. So under the Kennedy Institute, we have what is the Africa Oxford KTPS studentship. So this is a specific DPhil funding for a student from Africa to undertake a 4-year DPhil at the Kennedy Institute. So the Kennedy Institute does a wide range of research, right from infectious diseases to rheumatology and inflammatory diseases. So if you go on the website, the Kennedy Institute of Rheumatology, you'll be able to see that the applications for this DPhil studentship are open. And I highly encourage, if there's any student from the continent who's very keen on pursuing a DPhil with the department, to go on that page, and there are 9 projects that you can choose from, so you can be able to apply for this funding that is there. I must mention that it's very competitive funding. We have one of the highest stipends of about more than 24,000 a year. It also funds, yes, I can see Mwangi's first reaction, yes. So it's quite, it does buffer you financially. We have funding for laboratory costs up to about 40 or so thousand. There's also funding for travel. So it's a really good PhD studentship, and I would advise that if there's anyone who's qualified and interested, please look at it and go for it. So how do you apply to the Kennedy Institute? So on the application page, you'll see on the first thing is you have to choose 3 projects that are listed for that year. So as Clement mentioned, you have to contact your supervisor beforehand. So if you are allowed to list 3 projects that you're interested in and that you want to apply to. So that means I would advise maybe contacting 1 or 2 supervisors. For my case, it was a bit different because I had done my master's in that very department. So I already knew the supervisor I wanted to work with. So that phase was already completed for me. But it's highly recommended that you have someone who is a supervisor identified and that you've gotten in contact with. And then shortlist 3 projects that you're interested in and reach out to all of those supervisors. Then the next thing I would have to say is that please make multiple applications. I think it's very important to have a backup plan to the backup plan. So when I was applying, I applied for the DPhil in molecular and cellular medicine, but I also applied for the DPhil in cancer science. For me, both of those DPhils were being supervised by the same supervisor. And so one other thing to look out for is that supervisors can have multiple projects listed under different departments. So be very aware of that. You can end up applying to several DPhils, but you end up working with the same person if you're successful. So don't just limit yourself to applying for one project. Please apply for several DPhils. And then the next thing is that obviously you need good referees. So that's a big part of the personal statement. You have three referees that you need to list, at least two academic and one professional. And I think the university starts processing your application once two of the references have been submitted. So something to take note of. You can also replace one of the referees. Sometimes you list someone and then they're not able to provide a reference, so you are allowed to replace one of them. And then make sure that they obviously submit on time. Another thing that the application requires for us is you need to upload obviously all your degrees and your transcripts. For medics like myself, one of the issues is that medical degrees are sometimes not graded. So when you're applying, that's where your transcript comes in, because they do need to evaluate you somehow. You then have to submit a personal statement. So this is a 500-word personal statement. You have to emphasize your research experience and your suitability for the project. You don't have to stress too much if you don't have the exact skills that the project is requiring. It's commendable if you do have them, but in case you don't, you can also put that as something that you're looking forward to gaining from the project. It's very important, I think, to explain other things that you do apart from the academics. So if you have any other extracurricular activities that you're doing, things in your local community where you're making an impact, please do put those in the personal statement, because that might be what differentiates you from that person and the next person who's making that application. The other thing I need to add is that even though the 500 words looks very short, the department makes allowance for you to add an additional statement of 1,000 words. So you can supplement your personal statement. So what I would advise is you have a document where you have your 500 words with the title personal statement, and then you have the 1,000 words just following that to say this is the additional information that you want to put forward to the department. So once you've submitted your application, first thing, please take note of for our department, applications are due on the 3rd of December. For the Medical Sciences Division. If you want to be considered for funding by the university, you need to apply by the December deadline. Otherwise, you're not considered for funding. So please do apply by that deadline. And one other thing I wanted to touch on is just what happens after your application. So you need to be aware of this because the time is very short. So if you submit your application by the 3rd of December, for our department, interviews are held in early January, like 19th, 20th January type of time. So you already need to start thinking about the next stage, which is the interview. And I'll just speak a little about the interview. So your application is assessed by people in the department. This includes our Director of Graduate Studies and some research group leaders. If you're successful and you've been shortlisted for the interviews, they'll let you know at least a week or 2 weeks before the interview date, most likely before you go to Christmas. So by the time you're going for Christmas, you kind of already know that you have this interview coming up. The interview lasts for 25 minutes. They will send you the people that will be on the panel for the interview. So that's at least 5 to 6 research group leaders that will be sitting on that panel. You have to prepare a presentation for 8 minutes, highlighting your experience and your suitability for that project. And then after that 8 minutes, ask you several questions. For the AfOx KTPS scholarship, one thing they will definitely emphasize is how your work is going to have impact on the continent, because essentially this studentship is meant to build relations between departments here and African institutions and universities. So I think in summary, that's what I would say. So reach out to your supervisor, make sure you have good references, find 3 projects that you're interested in, look out for the AfOx KTPS studentship, and start thinking about the interview process even now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mana, for the detailed, the detailed information on how to go about both of those, like the medical field, the medical department as a whole, and the KTPS, studentship. And I also wanted to highlight that yourself, Nina, and Ruth Nanjala, who is another student on the same scholarship, have a mentorship on itself for that application. I believe it's still open for application. So Oh, it's closed already. Okay, there was an information session on Saturday. Then I think then I'll highlight that, and that has been uploaded to the YouTube of AfOx, I believe. So do check that out for next year application. But yeah, lots of other information and still a chance to apply for the general DPhil in the medical sciences, and we'll have Uchenna come later to say more about the department itself. So thank you, Mara. We'll now go to Nikita, who is a DPhil student in the mathematics department, Mathematical Institute, I believe, doing mathematics I believe mathematics of random systems. She'll tell us more about that in her introduction and tell us more on her own funding and the department and how she went about making the application. Nikita, welcome.
Sure. Thank you, Mwangi. So as Mwangi said, my name is Nikita, and I am currently a DPhil student, but technically I'm a CDT student, so I'll explain a little bit what that means at the Mathematical Institute. And my specific program is Mathematics of Random Systems, and my research area is mathematical finance. And what I do here is mainly focus on trading strategies as well as financial system stability. So I think Mara and the other speakers have said a lot about the different application processes. So I'll just try and cover some of the key differences with the Mathematical Institute. And I think I'll try and actually talk about both the Mathematical Institute and the statistics department, because they are two separate departments. But there is quite a lot of overlap, both in programs as well as in faculty. So like I said, in the Mathematical Institute, we have programs such as the master's courses, as well as CDT programs, which is Center for Doctoral Training. And then we have the DPhil programs. So in terms of CDT programs, these are essentially 4-year structured DPhil programs, and they differ with the typical DPhil structure in that your first year is primarily courses. So in your first term and your second term, you take courses that are tailored towards training you to be sort of an expert in a specific area before you delve into your specific research topics. So think maybe an American sort of PhD program. That's sort of typically how they're structured. And then the DPhil programs are your typical 3 to 4 year programs. And then in terms of the statistics department as well, it's similar. There's master's courses, there's CDT programs, so Center for Doctoral Training programs, as well as DPhil programs. And so I think the main overarching thing that I can say is that there is a lot of overlap between these two departments, but also in general, I think while Oxford is very decentralized, you will quickly find that a lot of academics in different departments might actually be working on a topic that you're interested in. So for example, if you are interested in, let's say, mathematical biology, you might find that you might be able to find an academic within the maths department that works on that, within the statistics department, or you can even find them in computer science or in biology. So I think my sort of first, what I think I should have known before I applied tip would be to sort of search as wide as possible. So think of the area of expertise that you want to get more training in, that you want to focus your research on, and then try and look within the mathematics department, look at the statistics department, look at computer science, and then if you're more tailored towards, let's say, mathematical physics or something like that, then you can look at the physics department as well, because they will tend to be overlap in terms of sort of research areas that academics are working on. And then outside of that, I think another way to get sort of resources, because I think the mathematics department as well as the statistics department can tend to be a little bit confusing in trying to find out what different areas of expertise that people are working on. My advice would be to reach out to students within the departments and try and get sort of some insight on, first of all, different supervisors, possible supervisors, as well as just to get a better understanding of the culture of the different research groups. So the way that the departments are organized tends to be around research groups, and these research groups focus on particular topics. So for example, I am within the CDT department, the Mathematics of Random Systems CDT. However, within that CDT, there are many different research groups. So there's a mathematical finance research group, which I'm on. There's also the stochastic analysis research group, within the same program. So it's very decentralized, like I said, but there is quite a lot of overlap because while I am in mathematical finance, I also am within the stochastic analysis group. I'm also in the data sciences group. So I think the best way is to, first of all, identify your research topic as well as research area and find the research group that you're interested in, and then look into the different possible supervisors that you find on the website. Once you do that, I would advise reading a little bit more about their work and understanding the different sort of research areas that they work in, and then reaching out to the supervisors. So like everybody has already mentioned, Oxford is quite competitive, and it's highly, highly advisable for you to reach out to a supervisor before you put in an application. So within the Mathematical Institute, the CDT programs, well, both the Mathematical Institute and the Statistics Department, CDT programs, the Center for Doctoral Training programs, don't require you to have a supervisor going into the program because obviously they have that 4-year structure, and within your first year, you're taking courses and you have that opportunity to meet the different academics in the department and sort of have that leeway to be able to find somebody who's going to supervise your research. However, on the other hand, the DPhil programs, you are required to have a supervisor when applying. You are required to have a supervisor on right at the beginning because obviously there isn't that sort of learning 1-year program. You're diving straight directly into your research. But regardless of the fact that the Center for Doctoral Training programs don't require you to have a supervisor, it's highly, highly advisable to have a supervisor. And one thing that I would say, I did see a question around what if they don't reply? I think the first thing is reach out to as many people as you think you would be interested in. And I think with that, make sure that you put your best foot forward. So what I mean by that is that make sure that your email is well written, it's short, you're obviously not attaching your research proposal at that stage, you're just showcasing your interest in their work, as well as you have to sort of highlight your background because that's very important for them to actually even be attracted to your email, to know that this is somebody that has the necessary foundational background for them to be able to work with. And do that to as many supervisors as you want to. Not everybody is going to reach back out to you. There might be a few that might be interested, but not available, and they'll redirect you to other possible supervisors. So it's just, like in some sense, a numbers game, as well as you have to be tactical around how you go about it and be persistent because it might not take one email to the supervisor, maybe another follow-up email, and then they will respond to you. And then going back to sort of your research proposal. So for the CDT, you don't need a research proposal when you apply. You need a personal statement. And this is where you showcase your background in terms of whether you have a master's or you have undergraduate training. For the CDT programs, it's highly likely to get people who have just undergraduate sort of training rather than master's because, of course, there's that 1 year that allows you to deepen your mathematical knowledge. But for the DPhil, typically you find people who have masters, but it's definitely also possible if you've done a sort of undergraduate degree that allowed you to do extensive research for you to still apply for a direct DPhil and get into the program. So for your personal statement, that's just mainly covering your background as well as your interest, but it's not necessarily a deeply detailed research proposal. But then if you are writing a research proposal for a DPhil program, I would say that make sure you ensure that you are as detailed as possible around the methodologies you'd like to use or the research area you're interested in, as well as the necessary background that you have, as well as the research topic and questions that you would like to address, as well as show that the questions that you would like to tackle are feasible within the 3-year time span that you would have or the 4-year time span that you would have if you're doing a CDT program. And then, so with that, your research proposal, make sure that it's as clear as possible. And like somebody had already mentioned earlier, it's possible to get help from your possible supervisor to be able to craft a suitable research statement. So if you do get in touch with some of the possible supervisors and someone is keen to work with you, this is something that you can be able to bring up to them, to ask them to be able to review it and maybe just offer some guidance on how you can craft the most effective research proposal. And then The next thing that I will say is, so maybe when you actually do come onto the DPhil or the CDT program, it's important to know a couple of things about the department. So we do have scholarships. These scholarships typically tend to be, you apply for, once you get into the DPhil program, they will offer that to you. So there's specific different types of scholarships. There's the scholarships that are for women. So this is the Oxford Mariam Mizarkani Scholarship. So this is only awarded to a few number of female DPhil students. So if you're a female interested in mathematics, that's like a great opportunity because we don't have that much representation of women within the department. So that's one that you can look at. And then there's some newly created ones like the Martingale Postdoc Foundation Scholarship, the Jane Street Graduate Scholarship. That one is also quite new, but it's mainly tailored towards Black students. But that's one that you can also be eligible for. And then outside of the scholarships that you can find within the department, like many people have mentioned, they are scholarships in the entire Oxford that you can be able to get. So there's things like the Clarendon, there's things like the Rhodes. I myself am a Rhodes Scholar. And then there is also opportunities within the department to be able to, and actually within colleges, to be able to work as a tutor or a TA, and that can be able to supplement your funding in case you don't have adequate funding. And then as part of the DPhil CDT, sort of the Mathematical Institute structure is that you are required to teach. So this is just something that I always tell people because people tend to come in with the mindset that they're just going to be doing research. So you're required to do some reasonable amount of teaching, about 3 to 4 courses before you graduate, and that tends to be staggered out throughout your DPhil process. So that's another way to get good training if you want to actually become an academic. Another thing that I would say is if you don't want to become an academic, I don't necessarily think that a DPhil in mathematics sort of pigeonholes you to becoming a professor or becoming to an academic. I think it's a good foundational DPhil program that can allow you to actually go into industry. And if you are sort of looking into getting into industry, one thing that I think I should have known was to sort of plan out my time to include an internship. I think that's very helpful in just getting a better perspective of what you want to do after. It's not that you have to already know exactly what company you want to work for, but when you are planning out your timeline of your research questions and your research timeline, it's important to factor in at least a sizable amount of time where you can go work in industry. And typically, if you are within the Mathematical Institute, when you work, for example, within the Math Finance group, one thing that you can do is work with industry partners as well that offer funding. And this is a great opportunity for you to get both industry experience while you're actually doing research. And then I think we're running out of time for my part. So I think maybe I'll just talk a little bit of what happens after you submit an application to the Mathematical Institute or the Statistics Department. I would actually advise that you submit applications to both. You're not limited to submitting an application to either or. So you can apply to a DPhil program within the Stats Department and a CDT program in the Stats Department, or CDT programs both ways. That's really up to you. But I would say that they're typically the process of what happens after is pretty much the same. So you have a technical interview. Once you're shortlisted for an interview, you have a technical interview. This tends to be 30 minutes long. And this is a mathematical interview. So they're going to be asking you, they're not necessarily asking you about your research proposal. They're not asking you anything about yourself per se. They're going to be asking you mathematics questions to just be able to sort of get an assessment of what your background is, as well as the knowledge that you actually have, the foundational knowledge you have. And then this would typically be done by your proposed supervisor, as well as 1 or 2 other academics within the department. Yeah, so that's mainly what happens. And then you hear back after that within a couple of days. But again, if anybody has any questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat. I'm here for a few more minutes and I can be able to answer any sort of math department or stats department specific questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Nikita, for also highlighting the scholarship within the Mathematical Institute that most of us are not aware of. If by personally, I mean social sciences, and also for mentioning something important that one can reach out to students who are within that department to have conversation on supervisors. Sometimes it feels like you're spying on your supervisor or potential supervisor. I did have that dilemma of should I reach out and like talk about a supervisor before I reach out to them? And yeah, it's common. Reach out on most supervisors' profile, you see the student they supervise and their emails, and you can do that to just have an informal conversation before you even reach out to them to just get a vibe of how they work as a supervisor, how they think about like research themselves, and to just see whether it's the vibe you're looking for in a supervisor. So yeah, feel free to do that. Because of time, I'm going to move directly to the next speaker, which is a shift from like DPhil application to a specific scholarship within Oxford, which is a new scholarship by the Edison Institute. And we have Dr. Laura Lewis, who will have 10 minutes.
Great. Yeah, I'm going to be as quick as I possibly can. Hi, everybody, and thank you to the Africa Society and AfOx for inviting me. I'm going to put a load of links in the chat because I know that we're short on time. So feel free to save those. And I'm going to share screen really quickly, but just to say one of the links I've shared is actually a recording of our information session, so there'll be a lot more information there. So it is my great pleasure to talk to you about a very new scholarship program called the Ellison Scholars Program. It is based at the Ellison Institute of Technology, which is just being established in Oxford, and it is fully funded by Larry Ellison. So the Ellison Institute of Technology, which itself is new, is funded by Larry Ellison, who's the founder and also Oracle's Chief Technology Officer. So this is a quote from Larry. The Ellison Institute of Technology will focus its work on finding technological solutions for some of humanity's most challenging problems and preparing the next generation of leaders and innovators to share and apply these advancements around the world. So that quote sets me up really well for saying what the mission of the Ellison Institute of Technology is, which is to develop and deploy technology in pursuit of solving humanity's most challenging and enduring problems. We are focusing on projects across health and medical science, food security and sustainable agriculture, climate change and clean energy, government innovation, and the era of artificial intelligence. So the reason why I'm talking about this first is because Ellison Scholars, we fund undergraduate scholarships as well, but relevant to you all is that we are funding doctoral research at the University of Oxford. And Ellison graduate scholars will work on PhD projects that are in projects that are based at the Ellison Institute of Technology, trying to solve some big global problems in these 4 areas. So again, in the links in the chat, I put a link to our list of projects. Please do take a look at those. So under health and medical science, we have by far the most projects here, but we're looking at can we prevent disease and intervene at an earlier stage so that healthcare systems are not just treating diseases once they've surfaced. Can we see novel pathogens before they become a big global problem? We do actually have a project that is based uniquely in Africa and researching ways to create this Africa Clinical Research Network, so leveraging partnerships, etc., to promote excellence when it comes to clinical research within Africa. And again, all of these you could work on as a DPhil student at the University of Oxford. Again, under food security, sustainable agriculture, we're looking at developing environmentally sustainable farms of the future, so indoor growing. So again, these have engineering aspects or plant science aspects, and also, can we use plants to capture carbon faster and actually benefit the planet? We have only one project at the moment under climate change and clean energy, and that's looking at next generation energy storage batteries, but we are looking to expand this list as well, but probably not for this round. One of the things I wanted to say is our applications are open now for the graduate scholarship, but they close on Monday at 4 p.m. local time. I will say that references are not due till mid-October. So as long as you list your referees in order to submit, you don't have to have your references by Monday. But I will also say this is our first year. Our numbers are actually not too high. So if this seems about right, please do submit an application. We would love to hear from you. So under government innovation and artificial intelligence, we're looking to use AI to improve how governments serve citizens, transitioning countries to modern digital infrastructure, etc. I'm going to let you guys have a look. If you're interested, look on our website, and there's a lot more information. You can click on the title of the project and then see more information. And the skills list are both things that you probably should already be interested in, but also things that will develop as you start a PhD with us as well. And a lot of the list kind of shows the multidisciplinary nature of the projects. You don't have to be able to tick all of them off. We understand, so we've had a few questions about that. So the Scholars Programme, the scholars are going to contribute substantially and meaningfully to these projects at EIT. And we are looking forward to welcoming a global cohort. So in order to apply, you have to meet the requirements for your chosen DPhil at the University of Oxford, and then have skills, expertise, motivation, so that you can kind of hit the ground running with what we're doing here. Obviously, there's plenty of time for training. You need to be academically excellent, genuinely passionate about your subject, tenacious and resolute, and then either a strong communicator or influential and motivational, or a trusted collaborator. Again, I'm going to run through this really quickly, but there is a recorded session online, and it will be online until we close our applications, and then unfortunately we'll be taking it down. So if you miss anything, you can watch that. Our benefits include being a part of these very multidisciplinary collaborative projects that are aimed to solve big global problems. We will fully fund studies at the University of Oxford. We are building a huge campus just outside the Ring Road in Oxford, which has more than 30,000 square meters, of state-of-the-art facilities and technology. So Ellison scholars are going to have access to the latest tech to deliver on the projects as well. And then they'll be part of a lifelong scholars network. Do check out our website, because the language for this shows that, and the text came direct from Larry Ellison, and so in here he's saying that Ellison scholars, once they've graduated, will continue to have access to our resources, and also the potential for future funding as spin-off companies as well. I am going to jump through these slides. I'm so sorry, but you can watch it online. So just to say again, our deadline is on Monday. I think there's time to turn around an application if this is a really good fit. But references aren't due till the 14th of October, so there is time for that. You apply to us first. We'll do a selection process, and then we'll invite you to apply to the University of Oxford as a finalist of the Scholars Programme. So essentially, you'll be applying to the university already with conditional funding. Our application form is very standard application for me, so personal details, education history, a research statement showing why you're interested in our projects. There is a video to upload, which enables us to get to know you a little bit better, and then 2 academic references and 1 character reference. I'm going to stop there.
Thank you so much, Laura, for introducing the new scholarship to a student today. And yeah, I would say if your research falls under that, I think you have some time, you have a weekend. I think that's possible to submit an application, more so for funding. And it's such an relief to apply to Oxford when you already have funding. That's all I would say on that. So yeah, go ahead and do that. For now, we'll move back to a DPhil student, and we'll have Yvonne. And I have to mention, from now on, we'll have people from the same department, or rather from the same discipline. So we'll have Yvonne, who is also from humanities, doing a DPhil in music. Then we'll have someone from social sciences, someone else from the medical sciences, and we'll end with someone from the engineering this department or discipline. So we'll be able to tackle some of the questions we can see coming in the Q&A. But in the meantime, please do continue dropping your question on the Q&A section, and our panelists we'll continue responding to them as we continue with the conversation. Thank you, Lola. We'll have Yvonne now.
Hi, I'm Yvonne, and I'm a DPhil music student going into my 3rd year. So I'm probably going to be the only person that you ever hear say, I applied to Oxford as a joke. I did not want to come here. Honestly, I'm still here, so clearly I'm doing something right, but it was never my plan. So hearing everyone say, reach out to your supervisors, I'm like, raw, I did not do that. I just filled in the application. It was easy enough, I think. I'm not gonna lie, I can't really remember too much about it, but I'm pretty sure it was like a research proposal, 3 referees, like everyone said, I think a research statement, and just like basic information. I read the process online on the website. It said, fill it in, submit by this day, someone will read it in 4 weeks and then contact you in 4 months. I heard back in 2 weeks, I think, come do the interview. I did the interview. They told me the next week, you're in. I got it. I said, okay, cool. And then I had to actually move there. And that's when it was a problem, when I had to actually uproot myself and say, oh, so I'm from London, and I live in London. So I'm just gonna say that some of the things that I guess need to be considered more would be how it will actually affect you as an individual. I don't know if it's very, very different because I'm a Londoner, but actually, I should say the reason why I applied in the first place is because I was scrolling on Instagram one day and I got an ad that said, apply now, Black Academic Futures. So I'm a Black Academic Futures scholar. That's my scholarship. I would never apply to Oxford if you're not going to pay, because for those people who have tried to do that, that know, it's not fun. This is not Disneyland. You can go to people and say Oxford, 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 cool. But those of us that are here, it's not fun. Sorry, it's not a joke. So I definitely was like, cool, apply now. And the criteria is what, oh, you consider me black. I'm African, but cool, you consider me black. That's great. So I applied for that reason, and basically that reason only. So I never thought about funding, didn't worry about funding. It said that as soon as you apply, you're automatically like considered for the scholarship. And I did ask about it. I think at some point somebody said, uh, yeah, don't worry about that. We'll get back to you with that information. I don't know how many months it took them. That's very Oxford of them, but someone did get back to me and tell me. So I did get the scholarship. So I've never thought about funding ever. I'm sorry. My supervisors, I had, so when I first saw the ad, I screenshotted it. I sent it to my lecturer from my undergrad many years before that and said, hey, I saw this ad. What do you think? Do you think I should do it? He said, yeah, go for it. His daughter was in Oxford, which is why I asked. So he said, yeah, go ahead and do it. And you should ask for this person and this person to supervise you. So when I got to that point in the application and it said, who's your supervisor? I was like, oh, cool. I did check, obviously, I checked, I did, but music is a bit different. So they do focus on different topics and things, and they were the only two I think that did popular music. So my research is in blackface minstrelsy, cultural appropriation, and its links to the popular music industry. I'm also the first Black person to ever be accepted onto a DPhil in music in Oxford. So yeah, I know. So I wasn't really uh I wasn't surprised and I wasn't expecting the most when I looked at supervisors, and I didn't think that they'd really get it. So when I saw popular music, I said, you know what? You're the best I'm gonna get from this place. So I just wrote it down. One thing I do definitely 100% want to reiterate to people is please look at your supervisors and what a supervisory relationship should look like, because if it works, then it will be amazing. And if it doesn't work, mates. If it doesn't work, it's not fun. Again, a lot of stuff here is not fun, but you really kind of need to know for yourself. I'll say that everyone's journey and everyone's journey and everyone's DPhil research, whatever it is very different. So the best we can do is just tell you how it has been for us, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be like that for you at all. My experience could be terrible and yours could be amazing, or vice versa. So you kind of need to know for yourself what it is that you want to do, but don't feel like you have to have all the boxes ticked, like all the answers, because the point of the program is that it's a program and you need to progress through. So when you do get there, you're gonna end up having to talk about if they're good, your methodology, your research question, your just your the things that you're looking at, the places you're going to. They're going to tell you to join this mailing list that you've never heard of before. And then you're going to see, oh, there's a conference here. I might want to do that. Or they're going to say, read this book. And so it doesn't mean that you have to have all your stuff figured out, but for your own sake, it's good to know what it is that you want to do and just expect them to give you those little nudges like, oh, maybe not that, maybe this, instead of just expecting someone else to know everything for you. But don't be surprised and don't feel away, because I allegedly was supposed to spend my first year just reading stuff. It wasn't like I wasn't thrown into a program where I had to know everything straight away. It wasn't like that at all. It was just like discussions for a whole year, 2 years. And yeah, here we are. I mean, I'm still here, so it's all right. But music is quite different. But prior to this, I was a course leader at university, so I just never take anything too hard like that anyway. But I just figured it was an application form and I could do it. So what I would suggest is if you're on here because you want to apply to a DPhil in music, don't do it. That's what I would suggest. It's not for you, it's not for anyone. Go somewhere better. But that's it. It's really simple for me.
Thank you so much, Yvonne, for the honest conversation that sometime, yeah, winter is coming. We have a few MSc students who are starting they just arrived. I've met quite a number who are being funded by AfOx and also by the Rhodes Scholarship this week. And yeah, Oxford can be a hard place to adjust to. If you don't have the right community, it might even be tougher. And particularly with the DPhil, the supervisor become the central point. Again, make sure you try to have more information about your supervisor before you even submit the application. Remember, you can have conversation with more than one supervisor, and you're also the leader or like the lead of you're the PI of your own project. So you can drop a supervisor before you even submit an application and submit with only one, or even wait for the next year, look for other places. Yeah, Yvonne has told us if it's music, yeah, reconsider that decision. Maybe you can email Yvonne to have an actual conversation on why exactly. But yeah, as we also said, there's a mentorship. Our AfOx, AfriSoc mentorship application is now open. We'll try do our best to connect you with a student from the actual department you want to apply to. If you're lucky, you might end up having someone who's being supervised by the same supervisor, which will be, will be a perfect fit for you. But because of time, I'll move to the next speaker, who is the second speaker from the social science department, and it's Acacia from the School of Geography. Welcome, Acacia.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for organizing this. I hope it's been really useful for everybody. I think the first thing that I'll reiterate is that the PhD it's your work. It's not coming to Oxford to be told by somebody what to do. And that starts with with your research idea that you put in when you're applying. You have to show that you can construct academic argument. You have to show that you can come up with a question that will be academically novel, and that, as people have said, that it's feasible to answer in the DPhil 3 years or 4 years. So that's sort of the most important thing, I think, is that you take ownership of the program right from the you take ownership of your project right from the outset. Then on choosing supervisors, so I'm really lucky. I'm in the geography department. I've got a wonderful supervisor. She has exactly the right balance of sort of letting me run down rabbit holes and read all sorts of stuff, and then just giving me little nudges to make sure that I'm making progress and going forward. But I think I stalked maybe 10 different universities, all of the faculty within geography, across all sorts of different places, until I found somebody who I felt was the right fit. And I looked at her Google Scholar profile, so looked at her publications, and I also looked at her students, ex-students, those who'd already finished their PhDs, looked at their publications and sort of thought about, what kind of work does she generate and what kind of work does she support? So I think that's also really helpful when you're doing your application, is maybe to read some of the graduated PhD students. You can just read the introduction to their thesis and also get a sense of what the scope is. So that's what I did in particular. And I did reach out to her before I put the application in. And luckily she was available to meet, and we had a really great discussion. But all the academics are really busy. I think everybody in Oxford's over busy. And so you can't expect to get lots of detailed feedback on your application. That comes back to taking ownership right from now. You're not going to get told this is good, this isn't line by line or anything like that. But you can get general feedback, and that can be really helpful. I'll talk a bit about the geography department. So geography is a strange thing. It's sort of all over the place. It's everything. And it's human geography, which is everything from transport studies to economics. And then you have the physical geography, which is like studying desert morphology and then climate modeling and all of this. So I'm a very big fan of the geography department, and I'd highly recommend anyone just, whatever your interest, have a look at that website, the geography website, just because, especially if you are interested in having like a transdisciplinary approach to your work, whatever the central theme or central question is, geography might be a really good home for it. And then the other thing I'll talk about is the college system, which I feel we haven't really touched on too much. And it's, I don't know if I can do it justice, but Oxford basically has a number, I think between 40 and 50, I'm not sure, colleges. And it's sort of in addition to your department, you're attached to a college, which is sort of like an additional home within the university. And in the application process, you'll be asked to select a college. I think I chose at random. So I think I think maybe I might have looked at the colleges that have the most funding and the most money, and I didn't want to put them first, so I put them second and third. Anyway, I didn't end up getting either of those. I ended up getting into Reuben, which is a brand new college, started 4 years ago now. And that's where I got my funding from. So I also applied to Oxford a bit, not expecting to get in and definitely not expecting to get funding, and without being able to just pay all the tuition fees and the living costs and everything without a scholarship. So I put the application in, and in my case, I did not hear back quickly. I heard back in whenever it was March, I think, March, April there, that I got a place. And then it wasn't until mid-June that I heard that I had funding. So I would say have a backup plan for sure, because it is really competitive. And sort of once you get in, it's almost not necessarily a case of there's so many people who could do the PhD and so many people who could qualify that it's almost a lottery by that stage of who gets funding and who doesn't get funding. But all of the college funding, you'll be automatically considered for. Anything that you're eligible for, once you're given a place by your department, which is the first place that reviews your application, at least in geography, then it sort of gets sent out to see what scholarships are available. And the university, once you've got a place from a department, will try really hard to make sure that you do get funding in one way or another. Obviously, that doesn't happen for everybody. But yeah, so I would recommend applying to Reuben. It's great. It's brand new. It's right next to the geography department too, which is really convenient for me. But in general, it is really central, right in the middle of town, next to the Natural History Museum. And the college can be a really great place to, you have a college supervisor that the university assigns, so an extra person to get support advice from. And then it's just another place where you can meet other students and have sort of an additional community, which can be really helpful going into the winter months and going and dealing with everything that Oxford throws at you. So yes, I think that those are my thoughts.
Thank you so much, Acacia, for highlighting particularly the college aspect. I just, realized that also there's some scholarship that are attached to particular colleges. So I know, for example, I'm also in the geography department myself, and I know Christchurch has one scholarship for a DPhil student in geography every year, same with Jesus College. And unfortunately, this information, you can only find it in those particular colleges. So it's not on the geography department website, but I know the Christchurch one, I saw it because I'm in Christchurch myself and I saw it on the website. So do also try think of your application a bit, Annie, so that you're making all this decision with all the information you need on, like, does geography has a particular funding in this particular college, so that you make that your selection. But again, as Acacia has mentioned, you can select a college and you end up in a totally different college, which might work well for you, but also might work unfortunately not for you. So hopefully everyone gets their light praise. I think colleges are spaces for community, spaces for research funding, spaces for maybe book grants, and yeah, technically also spaces for extra supervision. If you want to, for example, you're having trouble with a supervisor, a college becomes a place where you can approach that conversation with someone else, with an academic in that department. So there are all these support systems that can work for you when things become tough. But yeah, there's also the AfriSoc and the larger community. So I'll go to Uchenna, who is in the medical department of medical sciences, and she'll say more specific stuff about the medical sciences application. Thank you, Acacia.
Hello, hi everyone. I think Mara had actually covered most of the things that I had planned to say, so I will not be repeating what other people have said in the interest of time. I think the only thing probably left to say, so my name is Uchenna. I am a final year PhD student and studying population health. I'm looking at perinatal epidemiology, specifically looking at stillbirths in Nigeria. At the tail end of that right now, but that's not why I'm here. I'm a Clarendon scholar, and I have got a lot of questions with people asking, how do you go about getting the Clarendon scholarship? So I think I'm just going to use the few minutes I have just to talk about how I went about my own application. So for starters, in the medical sciences department, like in a division, like Mara mentioned earlier, for those who were around when Mara spoke, there are 16 departments within the medical sciences department. And if you're in medical sciences, you probably already know that everything is connected to everything. So for some of it's important that when you're putting out your application, you start off by thinking, oh, what am I interested in? So I'll give you an example. There we have the pediatrics department, for example. We have the women and reproductive health department, for example. And within these departments, there are people who are probably also studying the same thing that I am studying. Oxford is very decentralized. We have different departments. Each department is independent of the other departments. They are doing their own studies. They have their own, they're running their own show essentially. So it's important that when you're putting out your application, when you're certain as to what area of medicine you want to be researching, you need to search extensively across departments. Don't limit yourself to only, I'm in population health department. Don't, because population health sounds very similar to public health, you limit don't narrow your search to just one department, because what you're looking for might actually be in the radiology department, for example. So there are several departments. Ensure that your search is really very far. Secondly, someone has mentioned it previously on the call. I need to say that again. The person you work with is very important, your supervisor. Speak to previous people who has been supervised by this person. And sometimes it's not necessarily a case of a bad supervisor. It might just be an energy mismatch. So this person works a certain way, you work a certain way, and then the two of you trying to work together for a period of 3 to 4 years, one of you might actually lose their mind before the end of the PhD. The PhD is very difficult in itself, so I wouldn't advise you doing it under a supervision that really doesn't match your working style. Just for want of time, I wouldn't go much deeper into that. And then one other thing I didn't know when I applied or prior to my application, so the people who I spoke to before I decided to come into apply for the PhD had mentioned that, oh yeah, you really have to go for the advertised projects. So what happened in my case was that there were advertised projects in my department. I had applied for a particular advertised project, and surprisingly, the supervisor wrote back just to say, hey, I see your profile, you have a very good profile, but unfortunately, I don't think you're a good fit for this project I've advertised. But if you're interested, you can design a project of your choice, and then I can work with you, I will supervise you to do that. And virtually everybody I spoke to said, oh yeah, once you design your own project, just be ready to pay for the project, because they haven't heard of anybody designing their own project and getting Oxford to actually fund it. I took the leap of faith while I was also reaching out to other people, but surprisingly, everybody I reached out to, nobody really responded to me like my current supervisor actually did. Fortunately, I was able to, I got shortlisted, I did the interview, and thankfully, I was shortlisted for the department funding. So it started off with the department funding, and then from the department, each of the departments under each of the divisions will then submit list of top performing students to the Clarendon Fund, and then they do a second layer of selection. So it's sort of a selection from a selection. So there is nothing special in terms of you don't have to do an extra application. Everything really boils down to what you say during your interview. So if you've been shortlisted, it really depends on how great your interview is. Last thing I'm going to say before I jump off is that for your interview, don't just go in. This is not your regular work interview. This does not, I mean, it's not just about what you say in the interview. It depends on, if you're ticking the right boxes. I wouldn't advise you going for the interview without practicing, rehearsing with people, speaking to people who are currently working in the same department, people who are working on the same project, to sort of know what are the passion questions that would usually be asked regarding this particular project that you have applied for. Those things, they count in your favor, because depending on how well you have performed on the interview, that's what then determines if, one, you're getting the admission, secondly, if you're getting the scholarship, especially for the scholarships that you don't have to apply again for, the automatic scholarships. What really determines if you get the scholarship or not is how well you have performed on the interviews. So I just wanted to stress that it's important that you prepare for that. And start early. Do not procrastinate, please. Start early. You need to have started reaching out to supervisors already, because what happens is that just as you're reaching out to one supervisor because they have advertised the project, several other people are reaching out to them. And remember that they have to give feedback for the proposal that each person has submitted. So what that then means is that if they have decided that they're going to work with 10 persons, for example, and you're reaching out to the supervisors till October, November, that means by the time you're reaching out to them, they've already promised 10 persons they will work with them. They can't take up on infinite number of people, and there are several people actually applying. No one will do the work for you. You have to do the work yourself. You have to do the research. Spend time on all of those department websites. There are several of them. Spend time on those websites. Spend nights, weekends, whatever it is that you need to do. Because at the end of the day, when it works out, at the end of the day, there really is no feeling compared to it if you're actually able to make it. But there is support within here in AfOx and also on LinkedIn. Reach out to people that have done the program previously. The worst you can hear is, "I'm sorry, I don't have the time." But those that are able to would really take out time from their schedule, and they'll do what they can to actually support your application. And I'll end it at that and wish everyone all of the very best with your applications. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Uchenna, for explaining more on the Clarendon scholarship and the other details on the medical sciences, application to a medical science DPhil. I have a few questions two questions for the general panelists because we are running out of time, but we'll have Dustin, who is our last speaker for the day, who is a DPhil student in the engineering department. So DPhil Engineering Sciences. Dustin?
Oh, thank you, Mwangi. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think most of the important things have been mentioned, and in most of these departments, some of the things are like very similar. But what I think for the engineering department, that hasn't been mentioned by anyone is the CV. So when you're applying for the engineering department, you are required to submit a CV or resume. But that's usually not hectic. It's like you just have to tailor your CV to a research program and just not leave your CV as what you would usually use to apply for a job or anything else. Just try to trick it a bit to work for a different project. And then the other thing, I saw one of the questions, I'm not sure if it was answered, but it was asking about, I don't know if you like starting a DPhil directly from undergrad, something like that. But I'm like one of those who started their DPhil direct from an undergrad. So I did an undergrad in mechanical engineering. And then I didn't do a master's in between. And then now I'm like doing a DPhil. So it's possible to go from undergraduate to doing a DPhil engineering. Yeah, Uchenna mentioned something that I wanted to share about using LinkedIn during your application process. I think most people don't think about the power of using LinkedIn. Like there's like so many scholars who are on LinkedIn who are willing to help, but people tend not to utilize LinkedIn quite a lot. So when you're trying to apply, irrespective of the department, I think take some time to find people on LinkedIn who have been inside some of these departments, who have lived experiences with some of these supervisors. They can give you more insights on how the supervisors work, and that can be very beneficial in terms of selecting the supervisor. Because for me, a supervisor's personality is very important in terms of how we can work together. If a supervisor is like very, very strict, then I don't see myself working with that. So one of the things that I did during the application process was try to uh, contact people on LinkedIn, try to connect with people on LinkedIn, and try to get information from these people in terms of how the supervisor works and what are the kind of things that they're interested in. Because sometimes you might see that the departmental website says a certain thing, but they're not necessarily really interested in that. So using LinkedIn as one of the tools to connect with like current scholars or past scholars is something that I would really recommend. And the other thing in terms of engineering related applications is um, just thinking beyond your engineering degree. Don't only think about your engineering degree. When you're coming to Oxford, what is it that you're gonna get in Oxford other than your technical experience? Yeah, I think those are like the few things that I think we're not touched on in terms of engineering related degrees, because there's a lot of link between mathematics and statistics, your CDTs, everything else that Nikita mentioned is quite similar in terms of engineering science. The only thing that is a bit different is just having a resume or CV. I think that's all from me. Yeah,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Dustin. Thank you so much, Dustin, and all the other panelists for the amazing 1 hour, almost 30 minutes. So we were supposed to end at 6:30 UK time. We have 2 minutes, and Dustin has answered one of the questions, which was how do you reach out to students who are being supervised, and what kind of question would you rather ask in those conversations? Maybe you'll just give one panelist to say, particularly like the first conversation with your supervisor, if you're the one particularly who is designing the project and you're not coming for a project that is already in the department, what kind of question would you advise someone to try get? Yeah, as we could have Yvonne or one of the other panelists jump in on that.
Yeah, so I'm happy to jump in on that because my own project was designed. I had to design my own project. So what had happened was that I reached out to my supervisor and I had applied for a different project, like I mentioned previously. So, but then when she suggested I work on a different project, what she then proposed was that we have a Zoom call, right? And prior to that Zoom call, on my own part, I had to go research about her, see the sorts of projects that she has done before, what she's passionate about. It was still my own research that I ended up going back to see, oh yeah, she's interested in this, she's interested in this, I'm also interested in this. So I found the areas that our passions align. And then, of course, we all know academics are very busy people. So I prioritized speaking to those particular ones in the very first 10 minutes of the call. So we came on the call. She wanted to know what my background was about. I had to start highlighting the work I had done in maternal and newborn health. I had other experiences as well, but I knew that what would really get her attention was the things I had done in maternal and newborn health because this was her own area of focus. So yeah, the questions that you're asking is, or rather the steps I would rather suggest is that first of all, you find what the potential supervisor is interested in. Find something in your past, in quotes, in your past, in your experiences that sort of aligns with what that person does. And then you need to be able to demonstrate that whatever project it is you're proposing is something that is feasible and that you have the resources or the support within where you want to do it. So for instance, I was proposing a project in Imo State in Nigeria. I had worked in the state as a medical doctor and supporting public health interventions for about 6 years before coming in for my PhD. So I had worked with various hospitals and I was suggesting a hospital-based program. So it was easy for her to sort of see that, okay, so if you have the contacts of over 100 hospitals, like you say, selecting 20 for a project should not really be very difficult. So I was able to demonstrate that, which then helped her have the confidence that what I'm actually proposing, I'll be able to do that. So find areas where your interests align, and you need to also be able to demonstrate that what you're proposing you're going to do, that the resources and the connections you need to actually be able to do that is feasible and available. And they also need to see your drive, that you're actually able to do what you claim that you're able to do. So you need to also make that come out in the conversation that you have with them.
Thank you so much, Uchenna, for answering that big question on supervisors and how to contact them and the kind of conversation. Again, we insist supervisors are central to your life as a DPhil student in Oxford. If there's no any other panelists who want to add something briefly for 1 minute, I'll give it back to Nina to close us off. But yeah, any other panelists who want to say anything last minute, we have a chance for that. Perfect. Nina, you're also a PhD student. You're a DPhil student in the Kennedy Trust Institute Prize, AfOx, AfriSoc chairperson. How do you navigate all this? And with that, please close us our webinar today and remind people of the AfOx AfriSoc mentorship, where you can be connected with students who are doing the DPhil or even the master's. So this is open for master's application and DPhil application. But yeah, there's a place for you to indicate which program you're applying to. Also share on timeline on when they should expect to hear back from AfriSoc in regards to their mentors and to be connected to them. Thank you so much. It's been a joy hosting the panel today. It's been a joy seeing the number rise to 200 to 180 and 170. That was amazing, and we look forward to interacting within the application and also welcoming whoever gets into Oxford next year. Thank you.
I think Mwangi has actually done like a brilliant job concluding the whole webinar. So not to take too much of your time, I just want to say that the applications are opened today, and they will close on the 20th of October. I want to say a big thank you to all the speakers, all the panelists, and everyone for joining us today. I have put our social medias in the chat, so make sure to follow us for you to get a lot of direct feedback and interactions with us. And like we said, with the mentorship program, you're going to be paired with someone either from your country and preferably on the same course as you to give you one-on-one mentorship so you can maximize your application outcome. So we're looking forward to receiving your applications. And I want to say a big thank you to everyone once again for joining us.
Thank you, Nina. We'll end the webinar now.